they served each other. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was how in the 1950s, a lot of things weren't perfect, but one thing that was seen was that males and females had vastly different roles before the women's lib, before feminism took prominence in the 60s. Before it kicked off heavily, it's always been around. It was around before 1960s, probably around before the mid 1890s. Um, so um, one thing I note with a lot of the couples that seem to last the longest is that in the marriage relationships, uh, the ones who they make an effort to serve the other person, and it's almost seen as a duty. It's a duty they have, but it's not something that's necessarily just hardwired in, or it's not something that they do begrudgingly. It's something that they were raised to do, but it's also something they feel like a calling towards, which I think nowadays it's made difficult by uh, feminism, because you have a lot of women's lib movements and stuff like that. They're teaching um, the opposite sex, women, to essentially not desire to do anything that caters to a man, which is kind of destroys that natural dynamic where the sexes are essentially serving each other. The man is serving the woman, and the woman is serving the man, which, in my opinion, that is the best relationship because both individuals are getting their needs met, whatever that is. Now, it looks different for different groups of people, but in general, men typically need certain things, and women typically need certain things. Now, we could discuss what those things are, but I think that's beyond the scope of this. Um, so in the 1950s, the sexes were almost forced to serve each other. Men were given a role, and the role was to provide for the woman and the child, mainly from a security standpoint. So the house, uh, the bills, the car payment, gas, food. Now, women, in an interesting way, the man supplied the funds, but then the women took the funds and purchased the products in order to keep the house running. So it was a very efficient system that was created during that time. Even though there were some people who felt that they were forced to be in a particular role, and this I think this happens in any given paradigm. I don't think it's escapable. There's always going to be people who feel like they're trapped by social constraints. Only thing I'd have to say about that is, at the end of the day, you're going to have people who are individuals, and you're going to have people who go with the herd, and that dynamic's always going to exist because somewhere in our history, humans have always kind of had this. Individuals are few and far between, but that's a different story. So nowadays in relationships, the women are serving themselves, and a lot of times you'll have men who are over serving the women. So they're not really so the men aren't really serving the women. They're kind of going above and beyond just the service for a woman. It's like a surplus. And we're calling a lot of these guys simps. Uh, I've been one myself. I think most men have been simps before. It's a really easy thing to fall back into, especially if you come from a certain upbringing. Uh, yeah, in the 1950s, and especially in some countries that aren't yet affected by women's lib, they're still serving each other. And in fact, it's getting to the point now where a lot of men are actually moving from the West to other countries in order to interact with women who kind of have that mindset where they feel it a calling to serve another person. And this kind of, when people serve you, there's an energy I think that's much stronger than the selfishness that we kind of uh, operate in. Serving others is extremely powerful, but the power of it is kind of it's counterintuitive because When you think about service for others, it seems like something you would have to do begrudgingly. But a lot of the things you remember, um, a lot of the events and a lot of the things we do, we remember. A lot of those things are selfless acts. Now there are selfish acts that we remember, but I think serving others creates the energy is much larger, the connection is deeper, and the needs of the other person are met. Partly because it's kind of in our nature to serve others in the way that we want to serve others. Now, take away social media, take away all the apps, um, take away the advertisements and the entertainment industry and how it teaches us to serve ourselves. Um, a lot of what we would do naturally is serve others, and we feel a compulsion to do it. Um, but where social media is concerned, social media is creating a vacuum. It's creating a surplus of attention for women, and this is kind of creating a situation where it's creating a situation where a man is kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to being a source, the main source of attention for the woman he's with. Now, for men, the issue is it's prime, you know. So guys watching that stuff, um, and I'm not judging, I'm just saying that it makes it difficult to be of service to others, and it makes it difficult to actually take action whenever you're wasting your energy. And a lot of times, guys, a lot of times we get carried away and we turn lackadaisical, lazy. We kind of venture off into things that those kind of activities in themselves aren't bad. I think is that in excess, a lot of times it's much easier than risking rejection or talking to someone who's actually in the flesh, which don't get me wrong, I understand it. Um, it's not really fun going up to a chick and talking to her and getting rejected. I know because I've done it. I've experienced it. I've learned from it. I think every guy should at least be able to know how to cold approach just in case he has to. I don't think cold approaching is necessarily the best thing anymore, honestly. But I mean, it got me my first partner. So there's that. Uh, yeah. So the idea behind this is that when you're in service to another person and that person is in service to you, in my opinion, those relationships are the ones that thrive the most. Those are the relationships we remember, they last the longest, and they are the most beneficial to our health. They served each other.